going to read more from 5 Lessons today, which is, as I always like to remind folks who are getting into Neville, or even people who are well versed in Neville Goddard's teachings, 5 Lessons is the most practical advice that Neville gives, at least for most people, I feel like. It's just a great collection of lectures that he gave in 1948, and the instructions he gave in regards to manifesting your external desires. His instructions are incredibly clear in 5 Lessons. So we're going to delve more into that today. Very quickly, it's now March, and I'm offering a new, really, frankly, unbelievable coaching program, a month-long program where you get to converse with me via Zoom, text message, and email for an entire month for a very reasonable rate, like a rate that I had to consider if I even wanted to offer. So if you want some coaching with Papa Bear Tim, this is a great opportunity to go deep with me and to really make a shift in your life. If you are invested in doing something like that. This is one of the craziest offers I've ever had. So for more info, radicalcounselor.com. And you can email me at info@radicalcounselor.com if you have questions or anything about that. Let's move on to 5 Lessons. So very quickly, let me just reread a little bit of what I wrote, what Neville wrote, or said, instructed, from this at the end of this first lecture in 5 Lessons. He said, the first step in changing the future is desire. That is, define your objective. Know definitely what you want. That's the first step. The second step, he said, was construct an event which you believe you would encounter following the fulfillment of your desire. In other words, your desire's already happened. Your desire has already happened. And you're constructing an event, an imaginary event in your mind that happens after your desire has already occurred, the fulfillment of it. The third step is you immobilize your body, induce a state akin to sleep, and then mentally feel yourself right into this proposed action, which is after your desire already having been fulfilled, right? I saw a comment on the last video saying, I can't do this, I fall asleep. If you fall asleep, if you get into the quote-unquote state akin to sleep and find yourself falling to sleep consistently and not being able to, do this Neville-type exercise, do it when you're more awake. Do it in the middle of the day. Don't do it at the end of the day or when you wake up, when you're still when you're drowsy. Neville, in some of his lectures, I actually read this fantastic New Yorker article, which I don't know if I've ever read before, or at least hadn't read it in years, from 1943. I'll link to it below. Great New Yorker article profiling Neville from 1943. And in that article, which I have a feeling I'll make a video on sometime relatively soon because it's a great article. Neville says in that article, he says, do this, the type of activity he's talking about now. He says, don't do this when you're going to fall asleep, like before bed. He says, do this like when you have energy, and then lie down if you have energy and get yourself into a hypnotic state. But then you're less likely to drowse off. So in other words, it's like if you're going to take like a nap in the afternoon or something like that. So that was interesting. He said that in 1943. So in other words, don't feel like you have to do this right before you're going to bed. Okay? And again, all of this is just an approach. This is just Neville's approach. That should go without saying, but I have to say it because people take everything so dogmatically when it comes to Neville these days on YouTube. So let's talk about the imaginary event if you're using this Neville approach here. Okay, he writes, or he said in 5 Lessons, it is important always to remember that the proposed action must be one which follows the fulfillment of your desire, one which implies fulfillment. For example, suppose you desire promotion in office. Then being congratulated would be an event you would encounter following the fulfillment of your desire, right? Having selected this action as the one you will experience in imagination to imply promotion in office, immobilize your physical body and induce a state bordering on sleep, a drowsy state, but one in which you are still able to control the direction of your thoughts, a state in which you are attentive without effort. Then visualize a friend standing before you. Put your imaginary hand into his. Feel it to be solid and real, and carry on an imaginary conversation with him in harmony with the feeling of having been promoted. You've heard this before, but it helps to hear stuff like this over and over again if we want to utilize Neville's approach. Great advice. And again, so important. Induce a state bordering on sleep, a drowsy state, but one in which you are still able to control the direction of your thoughts. A state in which you are attentive without effort. Attentive without effort. It sounds a lot like, to me, and I mean, I think it is the same thing, as basically being in like a trance-like hypnotic state. I can tell you as someone who, has gone to hypnotherapy now for several years, when you are in quote-unquote trance in a hypnotic state, you often do not feel drowsy. You feel very relaxed, but your mind is open. Your imagination is open, and you feel like you have control. That's what Neville is referencing, I think, here. And again, you're selecting an action of something that's happened after your fulfillment has happened. Okay? You can look at 5 lessons if this is confusing, if you need to read it a couple times, to get the gist. But we are emphasizing the basic approach of Neville here because it gets convoluted so easily when we are watching 100 different videos on YouTube or whatever, reading Reddit or what have you. Neville continues, he goes on to say, you do not visualize yourself at a distance in point of space and at a distance in point of time being congratulated on your good fortune. Instead, you make elsewhere here and the future now. The difference between feeling yourself in action here and now and visualizing yourself in action as though you were on a motion picture screen is the difference between success and failure. So Neville's approach, speaking in generalities here, generally speaking, why it can be so amazingly, shockingly effective is because you get into this hypnotic state and then you imagine this action, someone congratulating you for being promoted in the office, for instance, or whatever it may be. You imagine this action actually happening to you now. It's happening now. I talk a lot about this in the podcast, not only in regards to Neville, but just in general. Something that really appealed to me about Neville's stuff when I first found it is this concept of it's happening now. Now. You only are experiencing now. I'll put a link above to a podcast episode I did where I explored this now. Really get into it. It's like you can make the future the past in your mind. It's crazy, right? This is the far out stuff that's not discussed, I don't think, enough. Psychologically speaking, it's happening now because there really is only now. And when you really get to that state and feel it now, it's happened. It's already done. Boom. That's very powerful. It's very powerful just to feel that because it's like, oh my God, the relief is real. And because the relief is so real, it might manifest in your reality. Neville says it will. We can definitely argue against it will. If you just do this once, there's plenty of things which I've imagined real in this way and felt it. And, they never manifested in my external reality, at least not yet. But I'm talking about things years ago. Like when I first got into Neville, 2014, 2015, I would do exercises like this much more than I do, frankly, these days. and I would have it. It was over. And I would do an exercise for, say, like making more money, right? Or like getting more money, like a large sum of cash, right? I would do it. I'd feel to be done. I'd do it once or twice, do it for a couple days in a row or what have you, or a few times, and then I'd forget about it usually. And a lot of those things didn't manifest. So Neville's approach, what he's talking about here, if you really want to manifest an external desire, in my experiences, working with people, seeing how it works for, I would say, the majority of people, if you're looking to manifest a specific thing like a job promotion or, a specific person, right, or better health, there's a good chance that you're going to have to evoke this nowness of fulfillment, of the action of that implies it's done, and that relief, and you feel it now. There's a good chance you're going to have to do that many, many times, And Neville gives so many examples of this throughout his career. You can refer to the stories in The Power of Awareness or in The Law and the Promise. If you want to, hear stories of people doing this and reenacting that scene of fulfillment again and again and again until it actually, manifests externally in their world. And they did not lift a finger to make it happen. Now, of course, they didn't lift a finger directly. They didn't go to their boss asking for a job promotion, but they very much were actively doing this exercise time and time again, which in my opinion is lifting a fucking finger. This exercise is not always easy to do, which is why more people don't do it effectively. But if you get into this state where you feel the fulfillment and it's real now, and there really is only now, and you feel it, and it's like, it's very profound. And there's just so many incredible stories of what can happen, what can manifest when you do this. Much more amazing results than you would think possible, or that most people would think possible. So we still are in this first lecture from Neville, from 5 lessons, and him just giving instructions. We've already done 2 videos. We haven't even finished it. I hope going over these pointers is helpful to you. Again, Neville's just one approach. This is a fantastic approach if you're able to do it well and are into it. But if it doesn't work for you, just try a different approach. That's why this channel exists, is to show you all these different approaches that we can utilize to feel better, first of all, which is the most important thing in my opinion, and also approaches to just manifest better things in our external reality. If you have questions, let me know, radicalcounselor.com. If you want to do that program with me, let me know, radicalcounselor.com. Until next time, vibe out.